The first thing I saw when I woke up from emergency surgery wasn't my husband's face. It was a transaction alert from TD Bank telling me that $19,840 had just been charged to my Visa card by Whistler Grand Resort. I blinked at the screen for a long moment. My throat was dry. My left side felt like someone had pressed a hot iron against my ribs and forgotten to lift it. The ceiling above me was the pale, institutional white of a hospital room, and the steady rhythm of a monitor beside my head told me I was still very much in this world, even if I didn't quite feel like it. I called my husband immediately. He answered on the second ring. Hey, his voice was relaxed, cheerful even. There's a charge on my Visa, I said. My voice came out slower than I intended, still thickened by whatever they'd given me in the OR. Almost $20,000, Whistler Grand. Oh yeah, he said. Listen, I'm in a site meeting right now. You're okay. The nurses are taking good care of you. I'll explain everything later. Then he hung up. I sat there holding my phone against my chest for a full minute. The monitor kept beeping. Outside my room, someone wheeled a cart down the hallway. I could hear the squeaky wheel even through the closed door. I opened the TD app. The charge had been authorized at 9:47 in the morning. My surgery had started at 9:15. I had been unconscious when someone used my card. I went to Instagram next, because some part of me already knew what I was going to find, even if I wasn't ready to admit it. The first post was from my sister-in-law. It had been uploaded 6 hours ago. She was standing on a ski run in a white jacket I didn't recognize, goggles pushed up on her forehead, grinning at the camera like she'd just won something. Behind her, I could see the mountain, the bright January sky, and the unmistakable silhouette of my husband in a yellow jacket he'd bought 2 winters ago. Beside him stood his brother, and their parents, and at least 3 cousins I'd met maybe twice at holiday dinners. The caption read, "Family time in the mountains, needed this so badly." There were more posts. A hot tub photo. A dinner spread that looked like it cost more than my monthly grocery budget. My mother-in-law holding up a glass of something pale gold, laughing with her head thrown back. My husband had said he was in a site meeting. He was at Whistler. I put my phone face down on the blanket and stared at the ceiling until my vision blurred. The monitor beside me began to beep a little faster, and within 30 seconds a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Everything all right?" she asked. "Yes," said. "Sorry, I'm fine." She gave me a look that said she didn't entirely believe me, but she adjusted something on the IV line, asked if I needed water, and quietly left. I called my husband again. This time he let it ring 4 times before picking up. "Kurt," I said. I didn't try to keep my voice steady. I couldn't. "Why is there discrepancy at Whistler? Why is there a $20,000 charge on my credit card?" He exhaled slowly, the way he did when he thought I was making something bigger than it needed to be. "We put deposits down months ago," he said. "If we'd canceled last minute we would have lost everything. You know how non-refundable bookings work." I was in surgery. "I know. And you came through it fine, which is what matters. You're being taken care of. There wasn't anything any of us could have done by sitting in a waiting room." "I have to go. We'll talk when I'm back." He ended the call. I sat very still. Through the window at the end of my room, I could see a gray January sky over what I was pretty sure was the east end of the city. I had been brought here by ambulance after a car hit mine on the 401, shearing off the driver's side and cracking 3 of my ribs, rupturing my spleen. The surgeon had explained all of it to me about 40 minutes ago. I'd been lucky, she said. The kind of lucky that doesn't feel like luck when you're the one lying in the bed. I called my sister-in-law next. There was music playing in the background when she answered. Something thumping and bright, the kind of sound that belongs in an après-ski bar. "Oh hey," she said, not even faintly embarrassed. "Did you know he used my credit card?" I asked. "Everyone chipped in what they could," she said. "It's a family trip. You would have been invited if things had worked out differently." I was in the hospital. "I know, and I'm really sorry about that." She didn't sound sorry. She sounded like she was watching something across the room and half paying attention to me. "But we'd been planning this since October. Everyone was looking forward to it. You can't just cancel a whole trip because of timing." "Because of timing," I repeated. "You're going to be fine. Kurt said the doctor said you'd be fine." Before I could say anything else, she told me she had to go and hung up. I called my brother-in-law. He laughed when he realized it was me. Not a mean laugh, exactly, just a casual one. The laugh of someone who had not considered for a single second that anything they'd done required explanation. "Come on," he said. "You're not going to be mad about this. You're okay, right? That's the important thing. Someone used my credit card while I was unconscious. Kurt's name is on the account too, isn't it?" He said it like that settled the matter entirely. I called 2 more members of that family that afternoon. One didn't pick up. The other told me I should focus on resting and not stress about money, which was advice I found difficult to follow given the circumstances. By the time I stopped making calls, it was past 4 o'clock, and the winter light outside my window had already started to go gray. I hadn't eaten anything. I hadn't cried either, which surprised me. I think I was still too stunned for crying. The nurse who had come in earlier stopped by again near the end of her shift. She brought me a cup of tea without me asking. She sat with me for about 10 minutes, talking about nothing in particular. The weather forecast, whether the cafeteria had improved since last year, and I think she knew, in the way that experienced nurses often know things, that I needed the sound of another human being in that room, more than I needed anything medical. She was the first person to ask me how I was actually feeling. I said I was okay. She nodded, like she knew that wasn't entirely true, and told me to press the call button if I needed anything overnight. My mother drove down from Barrie the next morning. She arrived at 8:30 with a bag from Tim Hortons and a look on her face that told me she already knew more than I'd told her on the phone. She sat in the chair beside my bed and held my hand without saying anything for a long time, and that was when I finally cried. "Where is he?" she asked eventually. "Whistler," I said. She didn't say anything to that. She just pressed her lips together and squeezed my hand a little tighter. The next 4 days passed the way hospital days do, long and slow and marked only by shift changes and meal trays and the particular quality of afternoon light through institutional windows. My mother stayed as long as she could each day. The nurses on my floor had figured out by the second day that I had no other visitors, and they made small gestures that I have not forgotten. One of them brought me a magazine. Another popped her head in after her shift, just to say goodnight. They didn't have to do any of that. My phone kept sending me notifications. My brother-in-law posted a photo of a ski run at golden hour. My sister-in-law shared a video of the family at dinner, the table loaded with food, everyone's faces lit up and laughing. My mother-in-law posted a picture of a hot chocolate with whipped cream and wrote mountain therapy. Every picture told the same story. They were having a wonderful time, and not one of them had hesitated for a single moment. Kurt texted me once to ask if I remembered the login for our Rogers account, because he couldn't get the in-room Wi-Fi to work. He didn't ask how I was feeling. He didn't ask what the doctors had said. He wanted the Wi-Fi password. My sister-in-law sent me a voice note, not an apology, just a 30-second clip of her and my mother-in-law laughing about something that happened at dinner. I think she sent it to the wrong person. On the 5th day, I heard footsteps in the hallway that I recognized. For 1 second, just one, I thought, maybe he came back early, maybe he realized. Maybe the person who walks through that door is going to be the person I thought I married. My husband walked in wearing a Whistler Grand Resort quarter-zip pullover and carrying a gift bag with the resort's logo printed on the side. He had a tan that looked strange in January. He was smiling. "Hey you," he said. "You look better than I expected." I didn't say anything. He put the gift bag on the tray table and leaned down to kiss my forehead, the way you'd kiss someone after a short trip to the grocery store. "We brought you a few things," he said. Inside the bag was a resort-branded toque, still with the price tag on it, $34. There was also a small box of chocolate-covered almonds with the resort's logo on the lid. I held the toque in my hands and looked at it. "Did you buy this with my credit card?" I asked. He made a face. "That's not really the point of the gesture, is it?" My sister-in-law and my brother-in-law arrived about 10 minutes later carrying balloons they had clearly purchased from the hospital gift shop on their way up. My brother-in-law put a box of drugstore chocolates on the table beside my bed and said, "See? We didn't forget about you." For the next half hour, the 3 of them talked over each other, trading stories from the trip, a near fall on a Black Diamond run, a restaurant that overcharged them for wine, a hot tub incident involving one of the cousins and someone else's sandals. They laughed easily and often, filling my hospital room with the casual warmth of people who had just returned from a very good time. Not one of them said I'm sorry. Not one of them asked what the surgery had been like, or whether I'd been afraid, or how much pain I was still in. At some point, Kurt pulled out his phone to show me photos, swiping through them with the bright energy of someone who has genuinely had a wonderful vacation and cannot imagine why you wouldn't want to hear about it. He complained that the ski rental shop had overcharged him, that the mountain food was expensive for what it was, that the resort's spa packages were overpriced. He was complaining about expenses charged to my credit card. When they left that afternoon, my hospital room went quiet again. I looked at the toque and the chocolates and the balloons already starting to lose their lift, and I felt something settle into place inside me. Not anger, something quieter than that, something that felt a lot like clarity. That evening, I asked a nurse to help me get to the business center on the ground floor. It took me longer than usual to walk. My side still pulled with every step, but I sat down at one of the terminals and I started printing. Bank statements first. I went back 3 months and downloaded everything. Joint account, my personal visa, the line of credit Kurt and I shared. I highlighted every charge made after 9:15 on the morning of my surgery. The resort booking, the equipment rentals, the restaurant bills, the spa package, the incidentals. The charges had started appearing while I was still in the operating room, and they hadn't stopped until checkout 4 days later. I requested my medical records the next morning. The admissions coordinator walked me through the process with the kind of brisk patience that comes from doing something 100 times. Within 48 hours, I had documents showing the exact time I'd been brought in, when my surgery had begun, when I'd been under general anesthetic, and when I had regained consciousness. The timestamps were precise. When Kurt visited again 2 days later, I thanked him for the toque. I asked about his work. I listened while he talked about a project he was managing in Mississauga, nodding at the right moments. He seemed relieved, lighter. Near the end of the visit, he made a joke about how I'd probably overreacted about the whole credit card thing, and that we'd laugh about it eventually. Probably, I said. He never noticed that I closed my laptop every time he walked in. He never asked why I was suddenly interested in printed bank records, or why I kept my phone screen tilted away from him. He assumed that my silence meant I had moved on. It didn't. The home security footage was my mother's idea. She remembered we'd had a system installed 2 years ago, when there had been a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. When I was discharged and came back to the house, she sat with me at the kitchen table, while we pulled up the recordings from the morning of the accident. The timestamp showed the paramedics arriving at 8:51 a.m. You could see them working quickly, getting me onto a stretcher, loading me into the ambulance. Kurt was there, standing in the driveway in his coat watching. The ambulance pulled away at 9:03. At 9:11, the interior camera in the kitchen showed Kurt coming back inside alone. He stood in the entryway for a moment, then he walked to the counter where I kept my bag. He picked it up, unzipped the front pocket, took out my wallet, removed both credit cards, and slipped them into his jacket. He put the bag back exactly where he'd found it. Then he went upstairs. He was out the front door with a rolling suitcase 11 minutes later. My mother didn't say anything when the clip ended. She just reached over and pressed stop on the playback, and we sat there in the kitchen for a long moment. I need a lawyer, I said. Yes, she said, you do. I met with a lawyer 3 days after I came home. I laid everything out on the conference table, the bank statements, the medical records, the printed transaction log, the screenshots of every social media post from the trip, the security footage saved to a USB drive, and every text message Kurt had sent me in the weeks before and after. The lawyer read through it carefully and didn't look up for a long time. When she did, she said, "This is a well-documented file. Don't confront him yet. Keep gathering." 2 days after that, I went to the TD Bank branch and asked to speak with someone in fraud services. I brought my folder. The fraud specialist, a woman who had seen a great many things, reviewed each to him without any visible reaction. She compared the transaction timestamps against the hospital records. "You were under general anesthetic when these were authorized?" she asked. Yes. She made notes. She referred my case internally and told me I'd hear from the fraud investigation team within a few business days. In the meantime, I kept moving through the house the way I always had. I made coffee in the morning. I watched the news. When Kurt was home, I was pleasant in the way that doesn't invite conversation. He had told himself a story about what had happened between us. That time had softened things, that I'd accepted his version of events, and I let him believe it. The more comfortable he felt, the less careful he became. He used my visa twice more that month. Once at a sporting goods store, once at a restaurant. He didn't ask, he didn't mention it. He simply used it, the way he had decided he was entitled to. I documented both charges. On a Thursday morning in February, I received a call from the fraud investigator assigned to my case. She told me they had completed their review and confirmed that the disputed charges met the threshold for unauthorized use. She asked how I'd like to proceed. Completely, I said. Report all of it. The bank moved quickly after that. By noon, the dispute had been filed, the shared accounts had been flagged pending investigation, and my credit cards had been reissued. I had already opened a personal account in my name only at a different branch, 2 weeks earlier. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea when Kurt's name came up on my phone. My card got declined, he said when I answered. He wasn't shouting yet, but the control in his voice was thin. At a gas station. What did you do? I reported unauthorized charges to the bank, I said. You did what? They're investigating. There was a pause. You froze our accounts over a vacation. I reported charges I didn't authorize while I was under anesthetic. He hung up. My sister-in-law called 8 minutes later. Her voice had lost its usual ease. Someone from TD called me, she said. They were asking about charges from the resort. What's going on exactly? There's a fraud investigation, I said. Okay, but you need to call them and clear it up. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I can't stop an investigation that I didn't start, I said. You absolutely did start it. I reported what happened. She hung up, too. My brother-in-law called 20 minutes after that. He wanted to know if I understood that this was going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people, and that I should think carefully before things went further. I told him the investigation was already underway, and there wasn't anything left for me to think about. He told me I was being unreasonable. I thanked him for calling and ended the conversation. The family group text, the one I'd been added to when Kurt and I got married, was active for most of that evening. I could see the notifications coming in, one after another. I didn't open it. I just watched the preview lines appear and disappear at the top of my screen. Who reported this? Is this because of Nina? Wait, not Nina, his wife. They had forgotten my name in the heat of it, briefly. Someone needs to talk to her. The resort just emailed asking about the original booking. This has gone too far. They were not worried about me. They had never been worried about me. They were worried about themselves, which was the most honest thing any of them had been since this started. Kurt came home around 7. The front door opened hard enough that I heard it from the kitchen. Where are you? He called. I was at the kitchen table, same place I'd been. I didn't move. He came into the kitchen, still in his coat, his face tight. Do you have any idea what you've done? He said. The joint account is frozen. My cards don't work. My parents' account got flagged because of the booking. You have dragged everyone into this. I reported unauthorized charges, I said. The bank is investigating. We are married. I have access to your accounts. You took my credit cards out of my bag while I was being loaded into an ambulance, I said. There's footage. He went very still. I found it when I came home, I said. The security camera in the kitchen, it recorded everything. For the first time since my surgery, he had nothing easy to say. He stood there in his coat with his hands at his sides, and the silence between us was a different kind than any we'd had before. His phone rang. He answered it on speaker without thinking. His sister's voice came through, high and urgent. They sent a formal notice, she said. They're asking about authorization. I don't know what to tell them. He walked out of the kitchen into the hall, lowering his voice, but the house is not large and I could hear most of it. He told her to stay calm. She said she didn't see why she should stay calm when investigators were contacting her directly. My brother-in-law's voice joined in. Apparently they were all on the call. He said Kurt had promised that I wouldn't find out until I was back on my feet and rational. Kurt said he'd never used those words. My brother-in-law said he absolutely had, at the restaurant on the first night, in front of 4 other people. Within 5 minutes, they were all talking over each other. 3 weeks later, my lawyer called with an update. The investigators had subpoenaed the family group chat. She read me a message my mother-in-law had sent the morning of my surgery. She's already in the OR, Kurt confirmed. Let's head to the airport. My sister-in-law had replied, finally. Was worried she'd make a scene. My brother-in-law. Honestly, the timing worked out. We can deal with any fallout when we're back. I set the phone down after the call ended. I looked out the window at the backyard. still gray with February snow. I thought about all the mornings I had made coffee in that kitchen and believed I was part of a family. I thought about waking up in the hospital room and reaching for my phone and hoping, for just a moment, that the first thing I'd see would be a message from someone asking if I was okay. The bank restored the disputed charges in full. All of them: the resort booking, the restaurants, the equipment rentals, the spa packages, the incidentals, the 2 charges Kurt had made after I came home. The fraud department confirmed in writing that none of the transactions had been authorized by the cardholder. They closed the joint accounts by mutual agreement through the legal process and helped me set up new accounts with enhanced security. The divorce was filed in March. Kurt had retained a lawyer who argued that as a spouse he had legal access to shared finances. My lawyer put the security footage in front of the mediator. The footage showed Kurt removing my credit cards from my bag 11 minutes after I had left in an ambulance. His argument did not survive the viewing. His family distanced themselves from him fairly quickly, once it became clear that several of them would need to repay the portions of the trip connected to disputed charges. The family that had laughed together in a hot tub in January could not agree, by April, on who had known what and when. I moved into an apartment in the spring. It is smaller than the house and it has a window in the kitchen that gets good light in the morning, and I have not spent a single night there, wishing I were somewhere else. Some mornings I think about what it felt like to wake up in that hospital bed and see the fraud alert on my phone. At the time it seemed like the worst possible beginning to what was already a frightening day. Now I think of it differently. That notification was the first honest thing I had received in what had become a dishonest life. Everything they had done, the trip, the charges, the silence, the way they walked into my hospital room carrying gift shop balloons like that, was supposed to make it right. All of it told me something I had needed to know for a long time. I didn't lose a family when my marriage ended. I lost the version of my life where I kept pretending that what they showed me wasn't exactly who they were. Recovery turned out to be about more than my ribs. It was about learning to stop apologizing for taking up space, stop making myself smaller so other people could be comfortable, stop waiting for people who had already shown me, clearly and without ambiguity, that they would not come. It took emergency surgery and a $19,800 credit card charge for me to finally see that clearly. I won't say I'm grateful for any of it, but I will say that the morning I walked out of that lawyer's office with my documents under my arm, and nowhere I needed to be except somewhere of my own choosing, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like I was going to be okay, not the way I'd said it to the nurse that first night to make her stop worrying, actually okay, on my own terms. And that, it turned out, was more than enough.